It is crazy to see that in the latest patch we got some of the most hyped skins of the year. We got some of the most creative skins we ever got. And on top of it all, behind all the spaghetti, there is canon lore. More than that, this might be the coolest lore we got this year. It is something that is likely blowing away the entirety of Demacia as well as the demons, so far. And it is all coming in the form of two legendary skins. The Eternal Aspect Leona and Diana. Now, we are talking about two legendaries that, according to the data mines, were supposed to come out during Zahen's storyline. Of course, we are talking about what was dubbed the Darkin season. And once you start connecting the dots, you'll start realizing that the lore of these two new skins was foreshadowed there. Of course, a massive shout out to the lore community for picking up on it. And as to why the skins were supposed to come out back then, well, that is all tied to the Eternal Aspect Zoe skin. Another canonical skin that is heavily tied to the Darkin lore. You see, normally, Zoe is the aspect of Twilight. In other words, we are talking about a mortal that was given powers by the celestial god, the Twilight. After which the mortal was manipulated into enacting the Twilight's will. Now, here it is important to mention that under normal circumstances, the celestial gods don't fully take over the mortal vessels. The lore never gave us any more details, it is mostly vague. But in the vast majority of the cases, after a mortal ascends into an aspect, the celestial behind their power shows them the truth about the void trying to destroy the world, which essentially motivates the mortal to fight for the celestials. I mean, they are trying to prevent the destruction of all existence, so it makes sense. Specifically, this is how the aspect of the sun and the moon were created, where the sun and the moon themselves showed Leona and Diana the truth, after which the two were left with figuring it all out. In a similar way, Tariq was inspired by the Protector itself to preserve life, although there are also some exceptions, two specifically. The Celestial known as the Twilight is very mischievous, and they like to mess around all the time as they scheme in the background. And so, when they ascend the aspect of Twilight, for the most part, they just let the mortal to do whatever they want with their power. This is why Zoe is Zoe. The Celestial just lets Zoe screw around. Although, when the situation gets serious, the Twilight can step in directly. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And on the other side of the spectrum, there is the other exception, which is war. When Atreus ascended Mount Targon, his body was turned into Pantheon as it was fully taken over by the Celestial known as War. But later, Aatrox, one of the Darkin, destroyed the Celestial itself, and Pantheon was freed, becoming Atreus once again. Now, as we mentioned, the main goal of the Celestials is to fight back against the Void, which is the ultimate reality-devouring threat. And unfortunately, this threat is aiming to shut down Runeterra, which is the bright light in the darkness. However, the twist is that the celestial gods can't just descend upon Runeterra to defend it. Different stories suggested that these celestials are too big and too powerful to just come down. So, in order to protect Runeterra, they had to figure out other ways to do it. Some celestials actually crafted themselves tiny bodies that could fit onto Runeterra. This is what someone like Soraka or Bard did. Both of them essentially shrunk themselves down, which also heavily limited their power. For example, as a result, this is why Soraka's mortal body burns on the inside all the time. But other, more powerful Celestials decided to handle this in a different way. Instead of coming down themselves, they can lend their power to the mortals on Runeterra, allowing the mortals to enact their will. And this is what the Eternal Aspect skins are about. The first Eternal Aspect skin we got was Zoe, and she immediately revealed to us that these skins show us what would happen if the Celestials fully took over the mortal bodies, which is exactly like what happened to Pantheon. Which means that while these skins don't show us what the celestial gods behind these powers look like, they do show us their characteristics and their motivations, and most importantly, we get to learn about the lore of the Celestials. Now, as we mentioned, the Zoe skin came out during the Darkin season for a very specific reason. You see, canonically, as the Darkin started going on rampage around Runeterra, It was the aspect of Twilight, which at the time wasn't actually Zoe. The previous mortal vessel was actually Maisha, though we are not exactly sure what happened to her and why the Twilight needed a new mortal vessel. Anyway, the aspect of Twilight came down and she taught the mortals how to banish the Darkin inside the weapons. This is what was shown on the scroll that Zahen brought to the Kinku. So Zoe was very thematically tied to the story, even though she never appeared there directly. And that's where we learned about a really cool thing. As we mentioned, originally Leona and Diana were supposed to come out here too, but the skins got delayed, likely because around that time people criticized the gacha skins heavily. And so Riot likely took their time to actually make the skins good, which actually worked. And that's why the Leona and Diana are coming out now. But the cool thing is that their lore is still reflecting in the story that happened with Zahen. First of all, you can see that on the scroll of the Twilight you can see the symbols of the sun and the moon. The truth is that, again, it is all very vague, but we know that the power of the sun and the moon are somehow tied to the Twilight. The assumption is that they inherit some of its power, but we don't know to what extent they are all linked. But more importantly, the reason why the sun and the moon are here is because technically the Shurimen Ascended became the God Warriors after the sun reflected its power in the Sun Disk and created the Ascended. And later these Ascended were turned into the Darkin. So in a way, the sun is responsible for the creation of the Darkin. And in the story of the Twilight of the Gods, it was described that the aspect of Twilight used the power of the moon to eradicate the Darkin. And that's why the sun is shown here as the creator, and the moon is shown here as the destructor. Though other than this, the Leona and Diana skins were also foreshadowed in another place. If you have a look at the design of the two skins, since we know that these are heavily influenced by the celestial gods themselves, after they got fully merged with the mortals, you can see the crown of the sun and the crest of the moon on the cover art of the Truth comic. Here, among the symbols of the Equilibrium as well as the Eye of Twilight and the Fist of Shadow, there is the crown of the sun on the left side, which perfectly matches the crown that Leona has in the new skin, and the crest of the moon, which again perfectly matches the new skin. Which is a pretty solid evidence that not only are these skins canonical in the universe, but also that they were supposed to come out during the Zahen storyline. And so now that we know what these skins are and what they are about, what we can do is go through the skin bios that actually describe the canonical lore behind them, starting with Leona. The golden sun is the Aegis, a radiant beacon that endures when all else fails. Alongside the silver moon, she gave worthy mortals the strength to stand against the abyssal threat that looms over all creation. A final bulwark against oblivion. The sun burns with unyielding purpose, each flame a testament that life and light yet prevail. So, this bio explains what we just talked about, that the sun lends its power to the mortals to fight against the void. And again, here it is talking about both the creation of the aspect of the sun, as well as creating the Ascended of the Shurimen God Warriors. It was all done with the goal of protecting Runeterra. And so, what does the moon have to say to that? The silver moon is the architect, a visionary who cleaves truth from shadow. Alongside the golden sun, she revealed to worthy mortals the eternity beyond the abyssal threat that looms over all creation. An oracle who moves in silence and secrecy. The moon strikes against oblivion with wisdom as cold and sharp as her celestial blade. And so exactly like the sun, the moon also teaches mortals about the threat of the void, although here it seems like she's doing it in a more of a thoughtful way. Also, she's very much scheming it all from the shadows. And since the moon is called the architect, it is possible that it is the moon who leads the mission on fighting back the void using mortals. After all, just as the sun has the power over life, as it is portrayed, in many ways, it seems like the moon has the power to snuff it out. But then, what about the gacha skin? You see, previously we weren't sure if that skin was also canonical, or if it was an alternative universe. And well now, since the skin bios got updated, it seems to be canonical too. The eclipsed moon is the calamity, the scornful deliverance of holy annihilation. No longer does alliance with the golden sun serve her ends, nor does secrecy suit her means. Her wisdom has culminated into unshakable resolve. She alone shall bring righteous destruction and end the abyssal threat to existence, even if rage devours all who stand in her path. So in a way, this is a what-if scenario. This shows us what might happen to the moon after she learns enough about the void. At that point, it is likely that the moon is gonna abandon the sun, and she will try to destroy the void all by herself. That's why you can see all the destruction of planets all around her. The moon is done waiting for the mortals. But interestingly enough, that is not where the lore ends. Because these skins are legendaries, legendaries have their own voice lines. And from all of these really cool voice lines, we get more lore. And so, even though I haven't seen them yet, I saw some screenshots on the internet. And so now, let's dive into the voice lines in a good old reaction way. Alright, we have two sets of voice lines to go through. One is gonna be for Leona, the other one's gonna be for Diana, which also includes the gacha skin. And so far, these skins were a banger, so I have high expectations.
I called upon you, Star Forger, and you roared with silence.
That's an interesting start. Alright, so there's a really big debate that's happening right now, from what I've heard. It's the fact that technically, the sun should be created by Aurelian, because Aurelian is the one who created all the stars in the galaxy, because they are technically part of his own body. So, if the aspect of the sun is linked to the sun, is the sun a star in this universe? Because that's how it should be. And if that's the case, was the aspect there before Aurelian came? So is like Aurelian a being above all the Celestials? That would make sense, because at the end of the day, the Targonian aspects kind of bonded together, and it was the first Argonians who enslaved Aurelian, so there should be something happening there, but we don't have the exact answer to how the aspect of the sun is actually related to Aurelian. Though, what she's referencing here right now is the fact that Aurelian is actually eradicating the void, but he's mostly doing it because he's enslaved by the Targonian aspects. Specifically, I believe it is Zoe who's holding his leash, so perhaps she wanted Aurelian to help and he was doing something else. We don't have the exact context, but that is still a reference to the fact that the Targonians control Aurelian.
So this is what became of my god warriors.
Okay, this continues pretty well. I have a feeling I will like this a lot. So this is a reference to the sun essentially creating the Ascended God Warriors of Shurima, which is exactly what we talked about. And of course, here it shows Darkin, because the Darkin, that's what they eventually became.
You still shine, Silver Moon, but no longer reflect my light.
Ooh, so this is interesting, because aspect of the moon Diana, I'm gonna assume it is the eternal aspect, that's what the skin is, but, you know, he wouldn't be able to fit the name here. So this then reveals that the eternal aspect of the moon essentially is the separate aspect, because normally, hold on, this is far more complex, because Diana, as an aspect of the moon, would be reflecting the sun, because that's what the moon does, but now she is the celestial itself, so I'm gonna assume the celestial doesn't rely on the power of the sun, but the aspect of the moon does? Interesting. Maybe that's why the moon is more about destroying everything herself and like not really caring about the mortals that have a play in this, while the sun is the one who's building up the mortals as like a small army. Maybe the aspect of the moon is more related to the sun than the moon itself then. I like how complex this is.
Sunborn, you burn with my fire, but not my purpose.
This is cool, because Sunborn, again, it's the Ascended of the Shuriman army, and the Ascended were created with the power of the sun, because originally the sun disk was actually built at the bottom of Mount Targon, and it was really, the Shurimans are the Targonians who then moved into the desert and then built a second sun disk there. So the Ascended are created with the sun, but the Shuriman Empire no longer cared for the celestial war that was happening. So that's what she's referencing here. The Sunborn are created with her power, but then they fight for the Emperor and not the Celestials.
Even your own kind recoil from you, Empress.
So this is a reference to the fact that Belveth is technically a Voidborn, but it's like a mutated Voidborn that is self-aware, and Belveth knows that the Watchers are actually bad, and it's more like a cancerous version of the Void that wants to live, and if the Watchers win, then technically even the Void will be gone. Pretty cool voice line.
You cannot fight for life clad in hunger.
Okay, so for a second I was like, why would Kaisa be there? But it makes sense because the Aspect is gonna be fighting against the Void, and Kaisa is like a voidy-ish corrupted the human being that's still somehow alive, and there are tiny holes in the lore, but sure. So it still makes sense.
The end you delayed has still arrived, Iceborn.
This is cool. This is a reference to the fact that Lysandra actually summoned the Watchers onto Runeterra, and it is because of her that the Watchers have a big void rift in the Freljord that's just waiting to erupt again. And this line specifically is referencing how Lysandra froze the Freljord and she stopped the Watchers from arriving. At the last moment, she just realized that the Watchers were bad, so she stopped them, she delayed them, but they will come eventually.
You touch every truth, Twilight, yet embody none.
Oh, okay, interesting. So this is kind of referencing the fact that the Twilight is kind of being a trickster in the background, let's say. And the Twilight should be part of like a big scheme that's happening with the Celestials, which also references the fact that the Celestials technically are kind of at war with each other. They are not really fighting each other, but they are kind of like fighting for dominance at times, and their ideas not exactly align every single time. They still all fight the Void, but their ways change from time to time. And so here you can see that the Sun is not exactly trustful towards the Twilight, for example.
Bound, and still you ignite the stars.
This is referencing the fact that the Targonians enslaved Aurelian. That's why Aurelian is bound.
Useful today, still abhorrent tomorrow.
And this is referencing the fact that Belveth is technically fighting the Void, as I mentioned.
Silver Moon, your blade fulfilled our ancient vow.
Ancient Vow? I mean, this is an assist, so the Ancient Vow would be something like, hey, we need to fight the Void, and there's gonna be a day where we have to team up. I'm gonna assume something like this would happen because it fits also the lore of Leona and Diana, where both of them kind of learned a different truth from their aspects, and it seems like Diana learned a little bit more from the moon. So it would make sense if the two had some kind of a deal, and they would have to fight together eventually.
Void made, yet sunstruck.
Sunstruck and Void made. So this is a reference to the fact that Kaisa was, again, she has the little voidy parasite on her body, but she's also from Shurima, so is she somewhat indirectly related to something that would be like Sunborn from the Shuriman Empire? Sure. Other than that, I'm not exactly sure what this would be referencing.
Even the Abyssal can strike true. Once.
I wonder if there's something like more hidden lore in this, because this is an assist in-game with a Voidborn on your side, so the champion has to kind of praise the Void for helping her, but I wonder, is there something more hidden in this?
I held it open, O world-skipping Twilight. You sealed it shut.
Okay! Hold on, that's interesting. So I held it open. Is this actually referencing the Ascended? Because perhaps it is this sun god that kind of like opened the gate and like let the humans use the power, but then eventually it was the Twilight that shut it down, and she eradicated the Darkin that became a thing after the sun didn't really have a great time. So I wonder, is this referencing that? If not, I am not exactly sure what this would be. Because truth be told, we don't have a lot of background stories for the Twilight unless we are talking about the Darkin.
We shaped you to endure eternity, Sunborn.
I like this reference. This is actually a reference to the Twilight of the Gods, where it was mentioned that the ascended god warriors of the Shuriman Empire actually witnessed the creation of the universe as they rode on like timeless space dragons. I am totally paraphrasing this, but this is a really cool reference to that part in the story where it was described that once you ascend, you kind of like witness the creation of the universe, which is, you know, all related to celestial powers.
Empress of nothing, return to oblivion.
Okay, so it seems like it's gonna be circling between these champions for the references, and then there's gonna be some Diana.
A desecration of my divine fire.
Again, referencing how the Darkin became a thing from the Sunborn that were created by the sun.
We were meant to burn away the darkness, not each other.
There you go, we got some purpose for the Celestials. So again, you know, their grand mission is to destroy the Void, and I wonder if there's more trickery happening in it now.
I had such hope for you, Void Hunter.
Why Kaisa though? Why very specifically so many voice lines with Kaisa? Is there like more lore happening? Is this like a preparation for something that's gonna be happening? Because like Kaisa is not that important. Oh, I know why this is happening. This is happening because Leona is a support in the bot lane, and out of all the AD carries she's gonna be with, there's gonna be Kaisa. This is a gameplay thing.
Even now, Twilight, you serve no shape.
You serve no shape. This is making me so curious because I have no idea what this would really be. It is possible that, for example, the sun and the moon have like some higher celestial above them, which kind of like gave them purpose. Maybe Twilight is like a free celestial that does whatever and doesn't really have a purpose, and that's why she's screwing around all the time. I don't know.
The ice thins, Lysandra. How long will it hold?
I'm gonna assume this was some kind of a mistake that happened here, and you know, other than that, I don't know why that would be the case.
Twilight, you arrive uncalled, but not unwanted.
Uncalled. I mean, this is kind of like what happened with in the Twilight of the Gods story, where the Twilight arrived and actually did pretty cool things.
Twilight moves against us. Then the final battle truly begins.
The final battle truly begins. Again, is this referencing like a plot point that's gonna be happening at like the core of the world? Like, because we know there are schemes that are happening among the Celestials. I mean, the world runes were scattered on Runeterra by a sinister Celestial, so we know something bad is happening there. Is the sun and the moon supposed to fight Twilight at like the end of a grand celestial story arc? This sounds amazing.
So, you have chosen to see reason aspect. Then stand at my side.
And again, she's suspicious towards other aspects. This kind of underlines how the aspects are working together, but they all have totally different ideals.
Mortals, demons, demigods. We all stand between existence and the great unmaking.
This is a reference to the Void coming for Runeterra, and if all of these don't unite at the end of a great battle, we are all screwed.
If all else fails, I will yet rise. The last beacon that burns against the end of all things.
I wonder if this is reference to the fact that the Celestial, the sun, can't really come down onto Runeterra without, like, destroying the planet or whatever is the lore reasoning for this. But at the end, if everything fails and the Void still starts consuming the planet, it is possible that then the aspect can come down and burn it all away. I wonder if that's what this is referencing.
The war for existence will be won with fire.
And again, referencing some great cosmic war. I love this.
Long have I circled this world, descending only when the Watchers first stirred.
These voice lines are so good. I love these so much. Again, this is referencing how the Void is coming for everyone. And so the Celestial looked at the planet and looked at how everything's gonna probably die if they don't do anything. And that's when they started doing stuff. This is so cool.
The other aspects tried to contain my fire. So I gave it form, breath, and eternity.
It's kind of hard to read this because, you know, obvious reason. So, okay, so she's the one who, like, shaped the fire. Again, this goes back to the question of, like, was this celestial god there before the sun was there? Because technically the sun was created by Aurelian, so how does this work? We still don't know.
The Watchers hunger without end, devouring the realms. I rise to end their feast.
Once again, referencing the Watchers.
Immortality was no gift. It bound the God Warriors to this world.
This is such a good line too. Okay, so this reveals that the reason why the Ascended God Warriors of Shurima are immortal is because they were created with the purpose of fighting against the void for all eternity. Except with the rise of the Shuriman Empire, they kind of forgot to do that. I love this line!
The aspects deliberate the eons away, while the abyss devours without pause.
Once again, hey, reference to the void. Pretty cool. I love these voice lines.
Let the Ascended remake the Sun Disk in their image. They are capable of wisdom.
Ooh, cool idea! What if... Oh my god, I love this. What if the Targonians build their own new sun disk at the peak of Mount Stargon? This is so good.
There are Watchers who slumber beneath the ice. One fracture, and their hunger awakens.
Once again, this is referencing how Lysandra froze the Watchers in the Freljord, but the ice is slowly melting, so eventually the Watchers will come back.
The heavens chose this moment for Flame to decide.
Also, this is technically like, she is referencing the heavens, which should be like a celestial realm. It is cool to see that usually this entire part is skipped and the champions don't talk about it, but yes, technically there should be some kind of like heavens, which should be Targon Prime or the celestial realm.
Though the disk was buried, the sun continued to rise.
I like this one because again, this is a reference to the fact that the sun disk eventually fell after the empire collapsed because of Zerath, but you know, the sun was still there in the sky. This is a really cool reference.
Each orbit of the sun delays the great unmaking.
She also references a lot something called the Great Unmaking, which is likely what they have as the word for the apocalypse, or the void actually coming for Runeterra.
Beneath our feet, this world thrums with ancient purpose.
Ah, cool. Okay, so now she also threw in a little idea that Runeterra had its purpose. I wonder if this could be related to the fact that maybe the Celestials noticed that the void is there and they have to do something with it, and maybe they like empowered Runeterra with their powers to like form a weapon against the void? Maybe?
For too long, I marveled at the splendor of our sun disk.
Again, that's a pretty good line referencing the sun disk that eventually collapsed because one human being was not great. Alright, but for the most part, that's it for Leona, so now let's hop into Diana's voice lines.
Slaughterous butcher, you profane the gifts we gave.
Okay, this one is starting strong too. So of course, you know, the Darkin kinda used the power of the sun to turn into something really bad. But what's really cool here is that the moon is kinda on the sun side, where she's talking about it being their gift. So I wonder if the power of the sun again is the sun and the moon combined. Then Twilight comes in. This is pretty complex.
Lead, God Emperor, or we will.
Ooh, okay, so that's cool. So this is a reference to the fact that even Azir became an Ascended with the power of the sun. So according to what Leona revealed, the idea was that the Ascended would be immortal and eternal so they could fight the void. But if Azir is not gonna do that, the aspects are gonna have an issue with that.
Your knowledge is needed in our war. You will wear our crown.
And again, remember that it was the Targonians who crafted the crown for Aurelian, and the crown had the power to enslave him. So Aurelian is now in the hands of the Targonians. And apparently he knows something that they don't, which means that the Aurelian had to be there before the aspect, and he created the stars, so maybe Aurelian is actually responsible for the creation of all of these?
Gentle twins, harden your hearts for all I must ask of you.
This line goes hard. Also, yes, remember that Aphelios is Aphelios, and actually both of them are Lunari.
God Warrior, you've much to learn in the ways of immortality.
And again, we now know, because of Leona, I love how these two voice lines kind of fill each other up, but because of Leona, we know that there was a purpose behind their immortality.
You have questions, great-hearted warrior. Let us settle them.
And again, so this is a reference to the fact that Diana actually learned something more from the moon during her ascension. She learned something that Leona didn't. And I wonder if it's gonna be important for our storyline later.
Do not let the splendor of the sun blind you to your calling.
It's also cool that here she's referencing specifically Leona, not the eternal aspect Leona. You know, we're not talking about the god, we're talking about the champion.
Is it inevitable that our paths diverge, Golden Sun?
And here, again, there was some kind of a deal that was made between the two, and she's kind of referencing that eventually they are supposed to team together, but she makes it seem like it was the sun that told her about some kind of a prophecy, and maybe the sun lied because the sun really wants to destroy the void, and so the moon agreed, but in reality there is no prophecy. There is so much potential for really cool plot twists. And again, maybe it's possible that there was no prophecy. Maybe that's what the other version of this skin is about.
You seek my moonstone, Tidecaller. Prove yourself worthy.
I like this one. Again, remember that Nami is from the oceans that should be near Targon, despite what's happening in Legends of Runeterra, and she's actually warding off the void that's in the ocean using a moonstone that is traded with the aspect of the moon. This is a really cool reference to a really old story.
Your knowledge will serve us, honored scholar.
And again, Nasus is one of the Ascended. The Ascended were created with their powers.
You stole the power of war, spear soldier.
Okay, the war kind of dominated him. He didn't really steal it. The war also died. So did Pantheon actually get the power of the war now when the war is gone? That's actually pretty cool.
Can you truly bear the Protector's mantle?
This is referencing the fact that there is also a celestial god called the Protector. We haven't seen them yet.
Fickle girl, I do not trust the power of Twilight in your hands.
And that's exactly what the Twilight is about. The Twilight gave Zoe the power and then just let her do whatever, just to see what's gonna happen.
Sunborn, my faith in you wanes.
And again, eventually, or actually from the beginning, the Ascended didn't really do anything for the Celestials. So it makes sense that they started losing trust.
Betray the sun and earn the moon's fury.
This is beautiful reference to the story of the Ascended, who were once again created with the sun, but eventually it was the moon that destroyed them. This is what that's referencing.
It is your own blaze that consumes you, Golden Sun.
I love how she has both really cool lines for Leona and the god that's above Leona. Whoever wrote this, these are so good.
Twilight, you will not interfere between day and night.
Again, how is Twilight related to them? Well, we still don't know, but it should be there is some kind of connection.
Behold the moon's design, merciless and pure!
The moon's design! Again, we know that the moon is now kind of more about destruction. This line goes hard too.
This strength shall be their destruction.
Ooh, okay, so not only does she have a voice line for a Blue Sentinel, because she's a jungler, but okay, those are totally different voice and totally different delivery. I like this.
A beast cannot divert my course. This blessing serves my war. Anointed, I march.
Okay, so she has a lot of voice lines about like war and what she's doing. And again, I now wonder if this is because she learned that she's not really supposed to make any pact with the sun, and the sun kind of betrayed her then, and so she just goes on her own path of war and destruction. This lore is so good.
My eclipse is rageful and righteous!
She says my eclipse because Leona also has her eclipse. She referenced that in her voice line. So again, maybe it is the moon that just took everything into their own hands. This is so good.
Mortals and gods are all unworthy. I alone bear the wisdom to save us.
And I believe that's what this voice line is. She knows, like, no one can do it. No one can defeat the void, so she's gonna get in there and just do it.
My rage is not reckless. It is a reckoning. Do the stars spurn me for my defiance? Let them. I am done waiting. Where I must go, neither the sun nor stars may follow.
And again, she's marching in there on her own. Nobody's following her.
Hear the chorus of sun and moon, our voices, an untiring hymn against the silence.
I love listening to these side by side where, you know, the red skin is all about we're gonna destroy it all because no one can do it, and then you have the normal eternal aspect that's still in this illusion that she's supposed to be working with the sun and it's all gonna be good. I love this.
There is gravity to our mission, light-hearted Twilight. Do you feel it at last?
Again, the Twilight is supposed to be helping, but is she really?
Cry vengeance! We face abyssal vermin, the threat to life itself.
I also like how every time she's talking about the void, she's actually more hateful towards it. It makes sense.
Be not afraid to give your lives. The silver moon shall deliver you unto eternity.
The Silver Moon will, So how is Kindred playing their role in this? If the Celestials can actually deliver death?
Armed with moonlight, minds ever ready, we face the great unmaking.
Again, they call it the Great Unmaking. That's like the Grand Apocalypse with the Void.
Before us lay many paths, intricate, radiant. The one I choose will lead us to triumph.
The one you choose! I think this is a reference to the fact that the moon will eventually lose it and go on a path of destruction.
The paths I forge need not be understood. I hold all knowledge. I am all truth.
This is interesting because this is kind of referencing the fact that, again, Diana learned more than Leona did from the sun, so maybe... I mean, this entire time it is teased that the moon is more about wisdom. That's also what the bio was about, so maybe she is actually more knowledgeable than all the other aspects, and eventually it is that knowledge that breaks her.
I will pull the oceans to my side, govern the very stars if I must.
Also, oceans to my side makes sense because the moon is pulling the ocean. I just got that. And also, govern the stars. Maybe if Leona is gone.
The old ways are dying. A new world cries out in birth. All existence is under siege.
The old ways are dying. I wonder if there was something before Runeterra then, if the Celestials were trying something, and then there's a new world, which is Runeterra, that's trying something now. There is so much cosmic lore!
The battles waged upon this fated ground will shape all of creation.
Again, it is actually referencing Runeterra being some kind of a tool or a weapon used by the Celestials. So maybe Runeterra was just enhanced by the Celestials to be some kind of a weapon against the Void.
I traverse this world wearing many faces, shining in fullness, striking in shadow.
This is a reference to the fact that every celestial god had different aspects walking the earth. That's why, you know, before Zoe there was Maisha. Before Pantheon there was actually a story about like a female warrior who was Pantheon. So the aspects have many different mortal vessels. That's what this one is referencing.
An immortal legion shall march in our image, proud as the sun, ruthless as the moon.
The Immortal Legion was supposed to be the Ascended, which were turned into the Darkin, and they didn't even fight for the Celestials, really.
This meeting an eclipse. Who outshines whom?
Bow and be blessed in moonlight.
I like how these are just polar opposites.
Baron, I will rejoice in your death.
Hey, Baron lore! Which is, like, nothing really.
Sacred is the silence, where the moon convenes with night.
Also an interesting thought I just had. There is a lot of talking about silence around the moon, which plays into Aphelios being silent after drinking a potion of the Lunari. This makes so much sense now. At least thematically it makes sense, where the moon is about the silence and the wisdom that comes out of it.
Nebulous were the constellations before me. I must see with eyes anew.
Interesting. First of all, see with eyes anew. But also, the constellations before me, is this referencing that, you know, as Aurelian was creating the stars, he created the constellations, and since these constellations are linked to the Celestials, did Aurelian actually create them all? From all the evidence we got, it seems that way.
This world must live on. I demand it!
I love these voice lines.
Her will unwavering, my wisdom infinite.
Again, pretty cool reference to what I assume is gonna be the sun and the moon teaming up.
Mortals are instruments, plucked to our song.
I wonder if this is actually a reference to Bard, because Bard, or at least his lore, was about the meeps being like notes, and like once all the notes are collected, it forms into an instrument that's like a weapon against the void. I wonder if that's related?
We deathless learn from those who fight to survive.
Deathless is also a really cool word for the immortal Celestials.
Raise me to the sky.
Well, and that is it for Diana's voice lines as well. So, I have to say, these are so good. Not only do these fall into like the previous lore that we got, but they also reveal so much new story that's linked to the Celestials that was kind of teased before, but it was never really talked about. And now we are in a Demacian season with demons, and suddenly we get like so much amazing Celestial lore. I love this so much, and it is amazing that we got all of this lore in a patch that is full of spaghetti.